Jewish life was like anywhere else in Europe. The people were mostly observant people. Holidays, observed the Sabbath, went to shul, kept kosher, most of them. There were grocery stores, restaurants. There was also a market, and people used to put up stands to sell suits, shoes, all necessities for people's everyday life.
We went to school, came home with homework, had to practice the violin. We were lucky, you see, we had the season change. We have rain and snow, so what is the kid to do? You stay at the home, and what shall you do? You read a book, and that was a blessing.
We observed high holidays. I went to Hebrew school, would go to services, because I would see my friends there. We would light candles at Hanukkah, but other than that, we were very much assimilated.
Holiday theaters, dancing, movies. We had a lot of friends, and they all came to my mother's house. My mother's house was always open for everybody.
My dad worked as a salesman. He came home once a week. He left Monday and came back Friday. My mother took care of us. She was a good cook, good baker. She baked her own challah and little breads for Friday. Hitler came to power, and when I went to school, they put me in the last row of the class because I was Jewish. After school, we could not play in the street because Jews were beaten up. We went to a big synagogue next to our house to make our homework, to play chess, to play ping pong, to do a little sport in the back of the temple, just not to be in the street. We couldn't go to parks. They started riding on the benches in 1935. They wrote on the benches, "Nicht für Juden," means not for Jews.
They burned books. As a child, I said, books for we learn from what's happening. Mad.
Berlin became a very clean, proper city for a few months in 1936 when the Olympic Games were played in Germany. All of a sudden, from all the benches, from all the parks, the sign disappeared because there was a lot of people from all over the world coming. It was like nothing ever happened there. But it came back. The foreign people left and everything was done again.
When Hitler was speaking, and I saw him on the balcony, they went me shaky when he came on the balcony. And after, when he went back, they were singing, "Nach Hause, nach Hause, nach Hause gehen wir nicht. Und wenn der Führer spricht," that's what they were singing. We don't go home until the Führer speaks, and if he speaks, we still don't go home. So I said to myself, what is happening here?
When Hitler came to power, he planted the fifth column, what they call it, you know. They had a lot of Volksdeutsch, what they call Germans born in Poland. These were the easiest people for him to organize. And they started walking around calling "Don't buy from Jews." This started about 1937, 36. It was a problem. But actually in Poland there was always anti-Semitism, to be honest.
On November 9th, 1938, in the morning, all of a sudden, we went out to school and we saw smoke and fire, and they started to breaking the windows. There were a lot of Jewish stores, and they took out the merchandise, and they started burning the synagogues. And a week later, I'm supposed to have my bar mitzvah. We cannot make it in the temple because the temple was burned down and broken. There was a little house in the back from the Gabbai, the person who takes care of the temple. He says, you can do it in my house, tell your family to come. In one corner were the burnt Torah scrolls. They were laying on the floor. I did my bracha, and I did what I have to do for my bar mitzvah. The rabbi was standing, crying. Told me never to forget.
The Germans entered in the morning, September 1st, crossed the border without declaring the war. But the night before, they bombarded all Polish airports. For this reason, not one Polish airplane could go up and fight the Germans.
I remember my mother waking us up and being in tears and said, the Germans have entered Holland and were at war. The fighting was over within days because the Germans just bombed and Holland capitulated.
The Germans were going to come into Paris, and when I saw the uniform and when I saw that shade of gray-green, it frightened me, and I ran back to the house and I started to cry.
When Hitler began to persecute us and separate us and marked us with armbands and stars of David. And when this happened, I felt a great deal of rejection. And I can remember saying and thinking to myself, why was I born Jewish?
Racial laws almost immediately took effect. We were ordered to wear first yellow armbands, which later turned into yellow star.
Once the German came in, everything changed overnight. Immediately loudspeakers and posters all over. Jews cannot work as doctors. Everybody who had office job, government job is out.
We couldn't go out too much on the street because they beat up the Jews all the time, and especially from the Hebrew school. When they saw us coming out or going in, and the word dirty Jew, that was constantly screaming dirty Jew when they saw a Jew. I think it was the worst time because I was a young girl, 15-year-old, and I needed friends and needed to go out, not to stay in the house constantly.
Them with college educations, preferably fluent in 2 out of 3 languages, Russian, Lithuanian, and German, and that these people would be given a chance to do easy work, research at universities and so on. And it sounded absolutely marvelous. So anybody who had any protection, any pull, tried to get in those 2,000. And then the day came and they marched out the best and the brightest we had. And they took them to a place called the 9th Fort, which was about 10 miles out of the city, an old World War I Russian fortress. And this is where they were killing people. They were bringing in people there from Lithuania, but also from Germany and from France and from all over the place. And it wasn't anything sophisticated, just machine guns and bulldozers and so on. So they killed the 2,000. They were never seen again.
The Warsaw Ghetto was formed, and they started putting people from all over. And we were told, we're going to move to the Warsaw Ghetto. This was the beginning of 1940. The Judenrat told us to put in everything in suitcases. You couldn't take any furniture, you could only take what you could carry. They took us into this post office where the SS was staying. They took everything away, beat the hell out of us, and told us to go. When we came into the Warsaw Ghetto, you saw already people dying in the street. It was not a nice picture, you know. If you put 500,000 people in a ghetto and you don't give them, people that went to work, they took commandos, they called a commando, they took 200 people. They marched them out so at least they got food where they worked on the airfield, building airfields, unloading train loads, you know, with ammunition, all kind of things. And the people that were in the ghetto, what can you do? There's no work. The only rations they gave you, even a child couldn't survive.
When the German occupied us, it was on a Passover evening. We were sitting around the table and my father was praying, blessing the wine, and the Germans were knocking at the window, shouting, "Verfluchte Jude," and we just lowered our voices, we blew out the candles, and we knew this is the beginning of the hell. We were ordered to get our belongings as little as possible and leave our homes. I thought, God, I wish I was a bird flying there, because the bird was free, but I wasn't.
Radios, watches, clocks, all that had to be delivered within 72 hours. And they apparently felt that they weren't getting enough. So they decided to show us that they were serious about it. And what they did was they sent armed patrols to every corner house on every street. And out of every corner house, they took 2 men at random, shot them, and just let them lie there. And we happened to live in a corner at that time. So they came to our house, they took out my grandfather and one of my uncles, and we heard shots, and we came out, and there were the 2 dead bodies. From a point of view of a kid, it was very boring. The adults would go to work. The kids would stay behind. There was really nothing for us to do. From time to time, there were actions when they would come and search through the ghetto, and they would take people out. They came in and burned down the hospital that we had a couple of times. But in between the actions, which were totally unpredictable, as a kid, it was really very boring. You had to find things to do because days were long. And we played a lot of soccer. You know, we would go out on the field and try and pick up a team, and I'd say, "Hey, where's Joey?" And somebody would say, "Oh, Joey, didn't you know they took him away last Wednesday?" And I'd say, "Oh yeah, what a shame, you know, he was a good center forward. Now we have to find somebody else."
When my sister was taken from Paris, they were taken to Liver. They had something like 20,000 people in this hippodrome for 5 days without sanitation, without food, without anything. My sister was very beautiful, Sabine, and there was a young man who was a guard that obviously fell in love with her. And through him, she was able to smuggle out a couple of letters. And one of the letters was that she just saw my brother's beautiful blonde hair being shaved, my brother Henri's hair shaved. My mother had beautiful black hair but wavy, shaved, and Sabine's hair was shaved. And in the letter, you could actually see the tears falling down, and that they had been put in prisoner's uniform. And this young man asked if he could marry my sister. She was only 15. And yes, it's true. You get her out of that camp, you have my blessings, you can marry her. By the time he went back to PTBA to get her, she was on her way to Auschwitz.
There was a letter smuggled from Poland, and this letter said there is something terrible going on in Poland. They are building a camp in a small town called Auschwitz. And we have the feeling something is built there that will help them to execute Jews in large amounts.
I don't know how many people there were, but we were packed in like herrings practically. Just, I mean, it was just suffocating, hot, smelly. You had your bathroom right there. You didn't go out. They didn't ever open the doors. It took a total of 3 days and 2 nights. And somebody was screaming that somebody died or something, and they still didn't open the doors. So it was just a horrible trip that I want to forget. I can't. I don't want to forget, but I want to forget.
There came trucks, and they start throwing in bread into the trucks. And whoever grabbed the bread, you know, if you're lucky, you were hiding it, you could save it. There was a father and a son next to me, and the father got a hold of a bread. And the son was about my age, he was still a little bit strong, stronger than the father, and he wanted the bread from the father. So he's trying to grab the bread, but the father didn't want to give away the bread. You would think a father would share with the son. And the son kept on hitting the father so hard till he killed the father so he can take the bread away from the father.
I had just turned 18 and I was looking out how free the world is.
Extremely smart man. I thought in the cattle I was sitting there, I thought, Daddy, what's gonna happen? I told him, after all, you know. And he always assured me, don't worry. This is the 20th century. They're not gonna kill us.
After 3 days and 3 nights, the door opened up, you know. Raus! 4 o'clock in the morning, Birkenau. Raus, so schnell wie möglich, raus! At that moment, we thought we were in hell.
Thousands of people were pouring out of this train. The train had no end. I couldn't see the end of it. And there was tremendous chaos. Children looking for parents, and mothers calling their children's names. And it was impossible to find anybody.
I was holding on to my mother's hand, and we were walking together. She was carrying my brother. Suddenly, a whip came down on my hand. I was pulled away from my mother, and she was shoved in a different direction. I started screaming, I want my mother, I want to go with my mother.
There was one person, looked like a ranked German with high rank, and he was telling you, you go to this side, you go to this side, and so on. And later on, we found out the left side meant, or one side meant life, the other side meant the death camp.
I see my grandfather standing there from far away. And I said, Opa. And he heard me. Helmut. He didn't think I was coming with him. He said, Helmut, wo bist du? Wo, Helmut? I got near to him. I put my arms around him. I pressed him against me. I said, Opa, I'm here. He said, Helmut, meine Helmut. He was a man. He must have weighed 45 kilos. Like that moment of strength, what I gave to him, was for me the biggest satisfaction in my life.
We were taken into an underground dressing room, and here, surrounded by Nazi soldiers and vicious dogs that were growling and barking at us, we were told we should get undressed, we're going to take a shower. And of course, nobody moved. So one of the soldiers walked over to one of these women and hit her and said, take it off. We came out naked on the other side of the shower room and stood there wet, naked from mid-afternoon till about midnight. The dress, and another prisoner had a bucket of yellow paint and a brush about 4 inches wide and painted a yellow streak from the top of our shaved head down through our back.
this was the identification of being a Jewish prisoner.
They pressed the number into my left arm. At that moment, when you get that pressed into you, your dignity, you felt so undignified, you felt so unpractical. In that moment, I felt I was nobody anymore. Because he said to us afterwards, now this is, when you asked your name, this is your number.
We were introduced to this overseer who was a couple. You know, all the overseers were called couples in the camp. She was a Jewish Slovakian girl. And I asked this couple, when are we going to be reunited with our parents? And she pointed to one of the chimneys of the crematorium and she said, do you see this chimney? I said, yes. She says, there go your parents. And when you'll go through the chimneys, you'll be reunited.
I looked up and I counted each star, one of my family. I said, this is my opa, this is my oma, this is my sister.
One of the Polish girls in the barrack started to sing Yiddish. And she was singing the song, My Yiddish Mama. And I remember we all cried through the whole night.
Work mix free, and the interesting thing, the first thing I saw was there was entrance. I never saw a sign which said exit. Either it was very hot that you were faint, or it was bitter cold. And, you know, we didn't have, so we would hold on to each other, and our bodies one would warm the other.
We were jammed in, we could sleep, never. We could never sleep. But we constantly fought to just stretch a little bit an arm or a leg because we couldn't move.
Soup. It's a little watery, with some grass in it. You could feel the sand under it.
And there was no sanitary, there was no water, there was no soap. You were allowed to go wash up once a day, and that was it.
Before you went to sleep, they used to dig holes outside. You wake up in the morning, the holes were filled up. They used to kill people at night. They used to take them out for nothing. You see a lot of people, I was young, so I could take it. A lot of people, they was older, they was in the camps. You couldn't walk no more to work. They don't need you there. They shot you for nothing.
When you woke up in the morning, you had to stand outside. For hours, it seemed like for hours, they were counting. And finally the tally was added up. Then they reported to a higher rank German that all is accounted for. But this took hours of counting and freezing cold and were all very hot. They just didn't care.
Guards were drunk all the time. Guards couldn't count, which means you had to stand for hours and hours and hours because they were too stupid to count. They played Russian roulette there, not with a gun. It would have been too simple. They lined you up for that famous appel to be counted. And then one of the guards who had perhaps a bad night or no night at all would say, every second, every fourth, out into the gas chambers.
They marched us, and then they took us in the room with the holes in the ceiling. See, when they gassed, they let cyclone big gas through. They told us to sit on the floor. There was no window. The doors were closed. So we started to cough and to choke. And probably from lack of air, we dozed off. And then, I don't know how long we were in, but then they started yelling out, everybody out.
what happened is really a miracle. That day, they had trouble with letting the gas through.
I didn't know the danger I was in, and I walked over a little bridge, and a man was standing on the door. Von der Sonne. Und er went in der said, was ist das du? Sag, komm mal ran, gesucht. Du bist hier in der Gaskammer. Sag ich, in der Gaskammer? I was at the back. Because they came in from the front, they went through to the hole where they had to put off their clothes, that I know now. They had to hang the clothes on, they had hangers there. It says there you're going to take showers, sit down, take it easy. The SS was standing there taking kids on their arms. And then he said 10-15 minutes you hear them shying and shouting, and after 10-15 minutes he said, they open the door again, it's finished. Nobody. And then you see all the strong people on top and all the weak people on the bottom. And the strong ones on the top, he says, they have stomachs full of air or something. You see people that scratched on the walls because they want to get on top of each other. The last death fight, you know, the fight for against the death.
An SS came to our barrack, holding up a violin, and he announced, whoever can play the violin to come to the front room, and I will give to the one who plays to my liking, I will give you food and water. The violin was given to the oldest one among us, and I have never in my life heard anyone ever so beautiful play. But the SS didn't like his playing, so he motioned a couple. One couple took the violin out of this wonderful violinist's hand. The other one picked up a heavy iron pipe and went from behind and smashed his head so hard that he broke his skull, and blood and brains splattered all over the floor. I tried to sneak back in the barrack, but yet a third couple grabbed me and forced me by the middle of the floor, gave me the violin and says, Spiel. Play. Here is what came out of the instrument. And when the SS held up his hand and started to beat the rhythm, because I played the Blue Danube, it's in 3/4 time. So he was beating, and then he said, hold it. Now, from that time on, right there and then, I could play anything that I wanted. But here is a question. I'm going to tell you something that you're not going to believe. I have never played the Blue Danube in my life before. Never.
I saw sadism, cruelty from the Germans and anyone that had a higher rank, whether it was a prisoner himself, but he had to show to the Germans that I'm doing what you might want me to do, and so on. I saw a lot of cruelty. I never thought that people can handle other people like that.
My job was to go and pick up the dead and cart them up to the crematorium, where another group of Sonderkommandos would shove them in the oven. On one occasion, I picked up one of the men who was on the floor, and I hear a voice saying, oh, please give me water. Oh, please give me water. And I look around and see, where it came from? Who said that? And the man, I noticed him. Well, this is the man I just picked up. Immediately, I went to the capo. I said, Herr Capo, Mr. Capo, this man I just picked up and put him on the car, he's not dead at all. In fact, if we would, he's asking for water, and if we would give him water and a little food, he could survive, and he could come to himself, and it would be very useful because he could go to work. So when we arrived to the crematorium, this couple forced me to be the one who shoves this man into the oven and burn him. And I had to comply with his wish, or else I'd be in it. Now, I have never lived that through. To these days, sometimes I wake up during the night screaming, and I'm seeing this man and hearing his cry. And I had to burn him.